What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by singer Pink. Basically, this product is called Misunderstood, and it came out in the fall of 2001. So the thing about this particular album here is Pink followed up her debut album with the relative. Pink followed up her hit album from the year 2000 with the multi-platinum album here. This is her highest selling album. This went 5 times platinum, and this was kind of a big deal throughout the early 2000s. Pink was kind of a larger staple about the 2000s, but it kind of feels like this album, some of its popularity here is a little bit unsung within the sheer full-blown appeal. Pink definitely made some noise in the 2000s, but it was just kind of the pitch that it just felt like maybe this album and other ones were kind of maybe like a hit or two shy of being like a full-blown kind of like superb kind of success. When you think of like folks like Avril Lavigne just seemed to have done a little bit more damage around 2002 when she came out, and it's the same thing with Kelly Clarkson. But I mean, the thing about Pink is Pink had three top 10 singles out this particular product here, and a fourth single that hit like the top 20 of the Billboard 100. So pretty much 4 top 20 singles within those pitches, 1 top 5 single, 3 top 10 singles, and 4 top 20 singles. So it's just within the pitch as far as saying 5 times platinum is nothing to shake a stick at as far as those fairs going to have them. It's just kind of the pitch. I don't know, it just feels more unsung and secondary in today's times. It just feels like Pink doesn't get the proper credit that she deserves within the relative aspect. This kind of feels like a forgotten about gem, and I think part of the prospect about that is just because one of her larger hit singles off this project, which is Get the Party Started, is like a mild kind of misnomer, because there's the other singles off this album, all 3 of the other singles don't have like that relative kind of glitzy kind of Friday night type of appeal. Now there are some other songs in this album that have it, like Numb and Respect and some of those type ones, but it's just kind of a differential type of appeal that does not really depict like the concept of like a weekend album. This is a personal album here, just to be able to say within that particular tone. This has some aspects of a lot of moody typeness, very similar to like what Eminem does with like the Marshall Mathers LP, very similar to what Eminem does with like the Marshall Mathers LP, and the Eminem show some of those particular type joints on there. Pink kind of has like some personable type appeals just in the aspect. This is a brooding type project. It has like some overcast type days, and just a lot of just not necessarily emo. It's not necessarily like an emo type album, but just the moodiness factor. This is a ruminate kind of venting type project just within the aspect. Now the thing about Pink, just the way she looks on this particular album cover, you would think that she'd be a little bit burlier within the pitch. Not to say that she's being limp on this product or dainty, but it's just within the aspect as far as saying that the ferocious kind of Pink, something that has more spice of like Pink would later do songs like this with further particular joints, but just the appeal behind it, just like I was saying, is just kind of a misnomer. Getting songs like the spunk that she has on Get the Party Started, it's not really on here that much. I mean, there is spunk on this album, but it's just not in like an up-tempo kind of like bravado kind of flexing kind of jig as far as this pitch can have. So it's just kind of the aspect that this is like, particularly Wikipedia says that this album's like a pop rock record, but I feel like it's a little bit more of like a blue-eyed pop rock type record. I'd say kind of combination like Blue-Eyed Soul with like pop rock, because this album is not really as much rock oriented. It does have some acoustic licks on here as far as those pairs can have them, but it's really not that vicious. I just look within the tone. It's just a little bit softer within the core of it, just within the tone, but it does have some good aspects. This is going to get like a relative classic score within the pitch. Out of 14 songs in this product, I wound up recommending 12, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that in, as far as those pairs going to happen. But it is a good blend. It's like a multifaceted. It does have some blues in here. It does have some hip hop. Does have some new wave. Does have some disco pitches like that. It does have like pop and acoustic folk, some of those particular type of appeals. So it's just a pretty multifaceted that just comes from a lot of angles as far as those pitches can have them. It's just kind of the tone that if you're expecting like the Liberty Spikes Pink, something like that, where she's going to be having her tongue pierced and some of those type of pitches, it's really cranking out like the devil horn, some of those type of pitches. That it does not seem to be on this particular product. But I know she probably had more hits like that later, but just to be able to say that the most ferocious song on this album is probably Get the Party Started, but it's just within the pitch. So yeah, this album is pretty, like, this is an impactful album. The fact that this album came out in 2001, this is definitely a state-of-the-art kind of R&B album for 2001, I would have to say. Just the pitch behind it. Just when I look after it, I mean, this is before, for the most part, before folks like Akon, T-Pain, and like Beyonce, even when she went solo, some of those type of appeals, pretty much. Like, I only think the real other record that was around this particular time that has the same standards and just relative quality of this particular record that was R&B wise or pop within a relative sense was probably, I would say, Aaliyah within the pitch, but she passed within the relative atmosphere of this particular album. So it's just in the pitch that Pink had pretty much like a lane to her own to be able to do this particular type fare. I don't know how I don't know too many records by Pink, but I'm gonna get to some more of these as far as those pitch combos. But it's just kind of the aspect as far as saying that this is a good type, impactful debut, and just an overall good album for 2001. Not just in terms of like pop, R&B, hip hop, some of those type fares, or just rock, pop, whatever you want to say, just within some of those type pitches. Blues, new wave, some of that type of era. I mean, just the balance kind of one that just feels like a good staple of just early 2000s, just within the aspect of just general vanilla kind of music within the pitch line. So it nails that particular appeal. It's a good statement. Just like when you think of like an album by like, you know, just a very notable album out of the early 2000s. So it's a good type pitch as far as those first gonna happen. But yeah, there were 4 singles off this album. Like I was saying, the concept about it is here is just the factoid as far as saying that Get the Party Started is the closest thing to like Friday type appeal, but there are some other moments that do have it on this album. But in terms of the other 3 singles, most of these are kind of more personal type ones. They're just more kind of makeshift dredge as far as this pitch can happen. But we'll get to the fair of that. So Get the Party Started is the lead single. It's like a classic kind of early 2000s nightclub kickoff kind of get here. Just great vibe and melodies about this particular song. The radio appeal in the song is very high. So just look within the pitch. Just this particular song, Get the Party Started, has the most glitzy production on here as far as those fairs are going to happen. It's just the most club oriented, the one that just has the most dance ready to go typeness, just within like a social type appeal behind it. It's real aspect. It's something for your pals, your social circle. There's some songs on this particular album that just feel like some social circle bops as far as those pitch going to happen, just with you and like a select few, 2 or 4 pals that you go out with on more than one occasion a month, or just within a relative few months as far as those fairs going to happen. It's good social circle kind of powwows within some of those type senses where you are, whether you're just smoking with some of these folks, going out for a round of drinks, or just other dance type crazies pitch like that. It's just some good kind of pub crawl type music within some of those type of appeals, but just a good concept there. So Don't Let Me Get Me is the second single, and this one kind of has like a good commerce type feel about it. This like a drifty kind of typical weekday cruise around to kind of get here. Just some Don't Let Me Get Me is like a drifty kind of typical weekday cruise around dredge to kind of get here within those aspects. It's a typical kind of brushy, slog, makeshift song to kind of have within some of those type tones. So it's just the pitch behind, just the relative pitch as far as being able to say and stuff within the aspect behind it, that this would be like some good Tuesday type music, Wednesday type music, Thursday type music if you do have work the next day on Friday. Some of those type fares just within the pitch, just a gusty type day, some of that particular type fare, just the aspect of this kind of relative. It's a little bit more busybody compared to like Just a Pill or Just Like a Pill and Family Portrait. I'd have to say it was just kind of the concept of this kind of more vehicle centric and a more pop touch sense that has like a mild kind of R&B format to it as far as those pitches would kind of happen. Just a real, just kind of typical type one that you would kind of hear in like some Muzak type fashion just within the pitch behind. It's one of those typical ones that like if you were to hear, like if you were to take like an Adele song from like the 2010s and then just slap it with like some early 2000s just ripped out of 2001, 2002, is that typical kind of Muzak that you would hear just at Walmart or Target or Staples, some of those type places, pitches like that. I'd have to say shopping malls, some of those type pitches, strip malls, some of those type fairs, just the concept of like that typical kind of just workaday type fare within it. So it's a good type one, good staple for that. But the thing about it is it's just really SFW and consumer friendly as far as those pitch can happen, or just workaday friendly. So it's just not the Friday type of appeal, get the party started, but it is just a nice workaday one, just SFW type pitch. Just Like a Pill is the third single. This is a nice one as well. Both Don't Let Me Get Me and Just Like a Pill were top 8 singles as far as those pitch can happen. They both hit number 8 on the Billboard 100. But Just Like a Pill is like a contemplative kind of makeshift thoughts kind of get here. Cloudy kind of weekday commute, I'd say about this one. Just some good Muzak and good song for groceries as far as those fairs going to happen. Just pitches like that. Yeah, I'd say Just Like a Pill is just like Don't Let Me Get Me. Just a little bit more brooding. Just a little bit more just in your head and more thoughts as far as those bounds kind of go along with it. Just a little bit more just kind of commotion, just like rumination is from the aspect of just kind of being out and about with this. So it's just the concept of just having some thoughts, extra times for those pitches kind of happen, just contemplative, just the aspect behind it, but just not quite as makeshift snap. I feel like at least Don't Let Me Get Me is like a relative social type one. Maybe when your pals is in the car with you, pitches like that, some of those type fairs that just like social kind of just aspects of like here and there going and get McDonald's or something simple like that, but it's just an aspect of still being within an SFW sense. But Just Like a Pill feels a little bit more solo, just kind of makeshift, kind of get things done just within a kind of productive kind of sense that I'd say, just but also thought provoking. So it's just good type. Just Like a Pill is just good type one for that. Family Portrait is the fourth single. This is another roundabout type one to kind of get here. It's like a brooding kind of makeshift ballad haze kind of get within those aspects. Just a scuzzy kind of yucko day. I would feel like here just extra thoughts for some of that type fare and just a homely kind of radio tune. So it's just the aspect as far as saying, that this is a personal type one. Just kind of some in between type moments just within the fare behind it. It's another brooding type one, just a little bit deeper than Just Like a Pill. This one just has a little bit more. Just if the contemplation on Just Like a Pill is probably like a 6 or 7 out of 10 on that one. This one's a little bit more like a 7 or an 8 as far as those pitch kind of happen just within the tone. It just likes the makeshift kind of tones, just within the aspect of just kind of lacing things together, just kind of this, and really there aren't tons of songs within this particular type fare as far as the aspect of not really being like a makeshift type song, but it's kind of a personable type song, but it does in a sense of having like a radio jingle about it. So it's just one of those type ones, kind of similar to what Eminem would kind of do with Cleaning Out My Closet, some of those type fares where you're getting personal stories from Pink as far as those aspects kind of happen, but it just does it within the aspect of having something to listen to in the radio to be relatable to. Just having family drama or just drama in general, personal drama as far as those pitch kind of happen, this kind of aspect of like social, this more personal type fare within the aspect of like the problems that go along with it. Just not work problems, not necessarily co-worker type stuff, SFW type stuff, but just in the pitch of more outside of like in IRL type stuff, but just not within the aspect of talking about what your day to day is. For us, it's just kind of the appeal behind it. But I look after it, just a brooding type one within the aspect behind it. It's kind of another kind of crummy type day within the aspect, the scuzzy type day, yucko type day, like I was saying. It's good type of appeal, but just the aspect behind it. So just some extra brooding there. So yeah, I look after it. So the only two songs I don't recommend out of the 14 on this particular album would just be 18 Wheeler and Misunderstood, the title track. So both of these didn't really like the appeal behind Misunderstood, the title track. Just didn't really like the acapella type verse on this particular song, or just the aspect. I mean, it just had a minimalist type production on there that I just wasn't into as much as far as the balance of it kind of went. It was just kind of one that just didn't have much gliss or gloss to it as far as those pitch can happen. Then 18 Wheeler was just kind of an outback type one that just didn't nail the appeal. I feel like there's some songs that just did that a little bit better. I feel like Don't Let Me Get Me is just a better variation of that as far as those pitch can happen. That's just kind of a clone. 18 Wheeler is just kind of a clone of Don't Let Me Get Me, and to a lesser extent Just Like a Pill, but just the aspect it just didn't have like the same impact as those particular songs. Is kind of one, I think if there was going to be a clone to some of the particular songs of this album, I definitely think a nice one that probably needed to be on here was probably Get the Party Started, or even like another variation like a dance club song, something like that, just a secondary take on something within an aspect of some TGIF type fare, but it just didn't have that. But 18 Wheeler was just one that was just like Don't Let Me Get Me and Just Like a Pill, that just didn't have as much of the same full-blown impact. But I still would have to say, me recommending 12 songs out of 14 on this particular album here, I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 9.75 out of 10. I look within the pitch. If it had been 13 out of 14, it probably would have been a 10 out of 10 just in the pitch. But it's just really on the cusp. 4 hit singles, despite the fact that only one of them is really weekend type fare and just more social type, up-tempo type, dance-oriented type stuff for some step out as far as this fair is going to happen. But I would say at least Don't Let Me Get Me has some mild kind of social spark about it within a relative sense, just more workaday towards it. But it's just some good type of appeal. This is just a balanced kind of pop album. I just would look within the pitch. It has different aspects, kind of has like a lot of appetites to be able to serve. You get your vegetables, you get your meats, you get your grains, you get your fruits, you get your desserts, you get some aspects like that as far as those pitch can happen. So it's just an aspect of just saying it's just a balanced kind of pop album that nails that particular vibe. So it's not just ballads, it's not just up-tempo songs, it's not just makeshift songs, just kind of within the aspect. There's at least 2 or 3 to about each type one as far as those pitch can happen. But talk about some more songs like Get the Party Started. I would definitely say Numb's a pretty nice one. It's probably one of the closest ones on here to some other social snap about it within the appeal. Not to say that this album is lacking in terms of spark, but it's just kind of the concept that this is the next one I would say for like some Friday type fare. Numb is like a good outback kind of on the town karaoke and TGIF mode, fun to kind of get here. Just goes with Get the Party Started. Definitely I'd have to say, and it's like a good social circle hop to kind of get. It's kind of some good type fare for like, alright, it's the weekend, time to step out a bit, figure out what's going to happen, order some drinks, some of that type pitch as far as those pitch kind of go along with it. Not as crazy as Get the Party Started, but definitely a good primer for some of that type fare. I feel like another song that kind of has some of those aspects of those particular songs would be the song Respect. It's like a snappy kind of up-tempo jive to kind of get here. Definitely goes with Get the Party Started and Numb, I'd have to say. Just a relative kind of dance hop and a good weekend primer to kind of have some of those aspects. So this one, a little bit more of a foot tapper compared to Numb as far as those pitches kind of go. I'd say this is probably the closest thing to like a 1-2 punch would be Get the Party Started and then Respect as far as those fares going to happen. Just a good aspect for some of those type ones. Good socialized type fare for like some relative bounce about them, but that's just kind of the tone as far as those pitches kind of go. I like some of these acoustic folk type songs on here. Like a real nice one for some of that type fare would be My Vietnam. It's like a stock quality kind of acoustic folk, I'd have to say. It goes pretty well with Dear Diary, I'd have to say here, and it's like a more distant and gazing compared to that particular song, and just has some ambient glaze about it. So it's just a good appeal. Some of these songs definitely remind me of like the sort of stuff that like Everlast was doing, some of those particular type pitches just within it. Just like a real, like some of these, like I was saying, Pink has a lot of personal songs on this particular type album, some good type appeals. That you feel the aspects of what she's particularly saying, has some food for thought. I mean, it's not necessarily like social commentary, like watching the news fairs like that, but just the aspect of having stories to kind of say, and just, you know, Pink having the character to be able to tell you some things for the aspect of just what's going on with her, and just the aspect of keeping it interesting. So it's very similar to like Eminem type errors, just being able to do that. She's kind of seemingly like the female Eminem as far as being able to do that. Let's look after that. But My Vietnam's like a real glazed type one that just nails that appeal. Dear Diary is one that's just like that as well. It's like a good smoky kind of folkish evening malaise kind of get here. It just reminds me definitely of Everlast once again. I'd have to say, and it's like some routine kind of dope rumination slide kind of get within some of those type of aspects. So just good type of appeal for that. Just some good nice ones. Just some sunset gazing pitches like that as far as those fairs going to happen. There's good aspects for like some outback type fairs, smoke one in the wind as far as those pitches going to go. Just, you know, countryside type peering as far as those pitches going to go along. This countryside type gazing as far as those pitches going to happen. Just good social circle type slide. Just have some good countryside type fair within the pitch. There are some R&B type ones on here and some blue-eyed soul type ones. I'd say songs like Gone to California really have that aspect. Gone to California is like a silky kind of blue-eyed soul malaise kind of get within those tones, just typical kind of outs in like dreary mode. Gone to California is like a typical kind of outs in like a dreary mode. I'd have to say about this one. Just Smoke One, definitely a good song to spark like a swish or something like that, and it's like some good night primer to kind of get. So this would be one before getting to songs like Respect and like Numb, and to a certain extent like Don't Let Me Get Me, and then definitely Get the Party Started. Some of those particular type fairs, it's a good aspect to like that particular fair of just, alright, I'm done with work as far as this pitch is going to happen. It's Thursday night, don't have work tomorrow, pitches like that. Some of those type fairs, to just figuring out what am I going to do. Some of those type pitches just within the tone behind it. It has some good melodies on here as far as those pitches kind of go. So it's just a good aspect of just realizing that Pink can pull off being an R&B singer. I want to say her first album, her debut album from the year 2000 was kind of more in an R&B type sense, but just the ability to be able to have that particular fair. So some good conducts there. Another song that particularly does that well is Eventually. It's like a moody kind of personable. Eventually is like a moody kind of personable rumination kind of get here. Just some in between day. It's like some in between day kind of quieter makeshift to kind of get within those aspects. And this is just one for kind of playing close to home as far as those pitch kind of go. So songs like Gone to California and Eventually are just some smoky type ones within some of those type tones behind it. It's kind of coffee shop type music within a relative sense of just being more around the neighborhood and more localized type fare within the pitch. Just more homebound type pitch within that particular fair. Just some real good moody type stuff that just has the affability behind it. Good personal type ones. I'd also say that Lonely Girl's another one within that relative sense as well. It's like a slog kind of after work shift down in the dumps, I'd have to say here. Just good early 2000s kind of makeshift brush kind of get within those tones, and it's just good for some gusty outings. Yeah, Lonely Girl just feels like one to finish up some last minute errands as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just the conduct of just like kind of being down in the dumps but still getting some makeshift tasks kind of done. Just social, with not necessarily social, but it's kind of within an outing type sense of just getting bills paid, pitches like that, getting the standard tasks taken care of, just in the aspect of just kind of a more glum type one, just a little bit more kind of scummy, scuzzy type day within the pitch behind a good type tone for that. And then like Misery is a nice one. So this is a nice one here. This is another blue-eyed soul type one, but this one's a little bit more bluesy within the sense. Just kind of the concept of like a down in the dumps kind of day drinking malaise kind of get here. Just some good saloon music. I would definitely feel like an extra time kind of funk kind of have within some of those aspects, and it's just kind of a song to chum along to as far as this pitch kind of go. Has Steven Tyler on here as far as this pitch going to happen. I think he's from Aerosmith as far as this fair is going to happen with it. So this has some good backings on here. Scott Storch helps out a little bit on this particular product. There's a chick named Linda Perry. Don't know as much full bound about her, but just in the pitch, there's some folks on here. It's a cat. There's someone named Scratch on one of these particular songs. Not really sure as to who that is, but this has some good compositions as far as those fairs going to happen. So it's just good impact of like a notable kind of early 2000s pop album as far as those pitches kind of go. I think I talked about every song on here in terms of the ones I recommend as far as those fairs going to happen. So it's just the impact, saying 9.75 out of 10. Just really on the cusp of being like a 10 out of 10. The reason why it's probably not getting a 10 out of 10 is just within the tone. As far as I think the main aspect behind it is just the fact that it probably just needed. I really feel like the most fiery song, and probably the song that most people are going to agree for the most part is like the most immediate and the most dynamite song, the most killer song on this particular album is Get the Party Started, which I feel like, yeah, the other three singles were good, but I think there probably should have been a fifth single or something like that, and I think the fifth, there should have been at least two singles, one at least to have the aspect of backing up the fire of Get the Party Started, and then the other ones could have been like the more makeshift type ones and more rumination type factor, because I like this being a personal kind of pop album. It has the appeal of having character on it, but it's just kind of aspect that it's not so much like a drowsy type album in terms of like where it's a bore, but it's just kind of the concept that it just needs like a fire to kind of keep the pace of like the ferociousness kind of going, to have like some good, not just to have Monday, Tuesday music, but also have Friday, Saturday, Thursday music as well, as far as those pitches kind of go. I mean, it does have numb, it does have respect, some of those type pitches, but I look after it, I just think the fire is something that would have been radio appeal and was probably necessary. But for 2001, this is still pretty outstanding within the pitch, just the fact that that's how most pop albums kind of were, where they would only have like one dance club single and pitches like that around those particular times. But for the most part, it nails these. For 2001, this definitely did some damage for a pop album and an R&B album in the pitch. But the social score, as a result, I'll probably give the social score like an 8.75 out of 10, because I look within the aspect, this is pretty balanced as far as those tones kind of go along with it. But like I said, I just think it severely lacks like another Friday type song, something that really anchor this particular product within like that immediate kind of up-tempo snap. It does have these moments. Pink is an interesting character on here. It does have some makeshift type songs to kind of make that interesting. It's an interesting album as far as this first going to happen. You'll definitely find yourself probably going along with the lyrics just to find out just how she views things, and just the aspect of that particular tone behind it. It's just like, just when you think of folks like Everlast, Eminem, some of those type folks, Tech Nine, and like Hops and folks like that, just in the aspect of just being able to do that particular pair, just pouring your guts and making it interesting. But it's just kind of the tone that the spark, just the fire on this particular product is just not as full bound within those pitches. That's the only real thing. It's the only natch to it. But other than that, it's pretty balanced. It covers a lot of bases, the makeshift songs, the dance songs, the personable and kind of moody type songs within those pitches. Just the tone of just having like some good aspects and cruise around some of that type fare, just good stretches for some of that type fare. So it's good concepts, but still 8.75 social. In terms of the future, like Pink, at least from what I checked, has dropped an album as recent as 2023, and she has a series of these as far as those fairs going to happen. So I'm just going to have to get to some of those type tones just to see what's about some of these particular products here. I want to see what like her second largest, third largest albums would kind of be in terms of like the hit potential and pitches like that. But I've heard plenty of her songs on the radio. It's often enough that I've heard plenty of her hits, but it's just within the time. I just need to figure out which ones I'm going to review. But it's just within the pitch. Just I'd say it's like a notable, like I was saying, this is like a virtual classic album from the early 2000s, especially out of pop and R&B as far as this pitch kind of going, just a real staple out of the early 2000s.